Hey, good afternoon, HR Fest folks. HR Fest online again. And today we have once again an amazingly exciting speaker, an interviewer. Hello, Dyan.
Hello. Hey. So good to be here. How are you?
I'm very, very fine and extremely happy and excited to talk to you because you did some very, very interesting things already in your life. Just to recap, who are you? So our audience knows that you are the founder and CEO of Shoshin Works, which I will ask you what that means, but basically that's your company. You are also an advisory board member of Open Assembly, who are doing some great, great stuff. And we had already interviewed some of the prominent figures from there. And you are also an advisory board member of Guide. And you, before that, you worked for GE, doing some really, really great stuff, doing Genius Link, GE Genius Link and GE Fuse, reaching tens of millions of people and delivering some 6 billion, if I remember correctly. So really, really a great career so far. But let's hear what's next, and please tell us a little bit about what you do now, how you see the future of work. Before we turn the camera, you told us about the renaissance of work. So how do you mean that?
Yeah, I think it's such an exciting time, and your community is just really poised at the fulcrum of what I think is a renaissance in work, right? The digital tools are coming online and really enabling a different way of work for people around the world, right? Whether you are in office work or factory work or field work, it doesn't matter. Technology is touching us all, and it is really enabling an elevated kind of work experience for a lot of folks. It's taken a lot of the routine, the monotonous, the very kind of repetitive types of activities basically off our to-do list, and enabling us to work more on the creative work and the innovative work. So it's really, for all of us, change is affecting how we engage with work, and it's kind of a renaissance moment for us all, at the individual level and the organizational level.
Tell us a little bit about what you especially do, because as far as I know, you are very much into the collaborative part of working, which means?
Which means the collaborative part of working, from my perspective, is the digital tools are enabling much more collaboration, both within organizations and reaching beyond the boundaries of the organization, and really the collaboration model, whether you're working with teams within your own organization, but beyond your own core operating team, or reaching beyond the boundaries of your own organization, it really requires a slightly different toolkit. So we all have to learn slightly different skills in order to be effective at communicating what we need, understanding, who brings what to the table, and making sure that we're good collaboration partners. And also, in doing so, as you start to open up work and collaborate more in order to drive outcomes, that means you have to set up governance systems so that you're good stewards of IP, good stewards of confidentiality, and you're operating within kind of well-established boundaries, but you're doing so at speed and at scale. So collaboration at scale is a slightly different muscle that we have to learn, and it requires a slightly different mindset. So really, I believe that we all have to basically undertake a shift in mindset before we can make full and effective use of these new methodologies.
What do you think is the most important few steps for somebody who is an HR director, wants to go into that direction? How can she or he start going?
Yeah, great question. I think that we need to be students, right? So we have to approach these new tools and new models with an open mind. And we have to be prepared to dismiss and discard policies, protocols, and methodologies that are a little bit outdated, that can be replaced with new models and new methodologies. So HR teams, to get started, really should become students of the new tools and the new business models. There are basically ecosystem models that are platform enabled, that allow operating professionals and HR professionals and sourcing professionals to connect workflows in ways that were previously much more difficult without the assistance of these platforms and ecosystem models. And so HR professionals would be well served by studying platform business models and ecosystem operating models. Learn who has applied ecosystem-based operating models, how they've done it, what's worked well, what hasn't worked well, and why. And then think about how to apply those models into their own operating cultures. And I would recommend that HR teams start with kind of small applications so that they can learn what works well within their own cultures and then build out from there. There are ways to do that very effectively, and there are a lot of case studies that show, how they can get started very effectively.
But do you think, is there a perfect culture or a certain kind of company culture that is more appropriate for these kind of jobs, or is it more the industry the company is in that is, or anybody can do it?
Yeah, these models are really upending, really can upend and are upending all industries. So that the platform business models and the ecosystem business models can be applied to any industry, and frankly are disrupting the industries that they are applied in. The company culture is key, and that's really where you have to begin. The leadership needs to be kind of progressive in their thinking, and they need to recognize that business model innovation can drive, if designed and executed appropriately, can drive really substantial improvements in the performance profile of the organization. And so you have to have a leadership and a culture that is open-minded enough to be willing to explore new operating models, new tools, new technologies, and not relegate the strategic direction necessarily entirely to the CIO. Really, the redesign of the business operations needs to be driven from a strong leadership vision, and through a partnership of all the cross-functional leadership of the organization, the HR team, the strategy team, the operations team, the technology team, all need to come together and design an operating model that works best within the culture and the priorities of their organization.
So what do you think is the future of innovation? Previously, innovation came either from within the company, especially from the idea box, that was the best tool, and by using outside help, but this help was usually paid consultants or agencies, or I don't know. What is the future?
The future is of innovation is really inevitable, right? Innovation is life. Innovation is the change that drives business and the economy. The innovation is a dangerous word for many organizations, because by establishing innovation as a role or as a function within an organization, it's easy to make innovation somebody else's job. Innovation is and should be everyone's job. Innovation is really just looking at what is and looking at what could be, right? Innovation should be a function of consistent and diligent horizon watching, looking at what models, what technologies are coming online, and it basically deconstructing the pieces and the parts of the way you work today, and see if there is a better way. And really, innovation should be everyone's job. It should be HR's job. It should be operations' job. HR, I think the HR teams could do a great service to the organizations within which they operate by infusing this spirit of innovation and entrepreneurship throughout the entire rank and file of the organization. And really, it's inspiring, right? If you are empowered to embrace change and look at what's new and what could be, it's empowering for your employees to give them license to think about better ways of working. Who better to introduce change than the people who are executing the work themselves?
So maybe, and that leads us to Shoshin or something like that. Explain what that is and what you do.
Yes. Shoshin Works is my consulting business, and that I began when I exited GE. And Shoshin is really a Japanese Zen Buddhist term, really, which means the beginner's mind. And I chose that name for my business because I really believe very strongly that in order to put yourself in a position for the future of work, to embrace the future of work and to embrace change, you have to be comfortable with dispelling old notions and old norms for how work needs to happen. You have to really kind of have a sense of humility and be willing to look at new models, new operating protocol, new technologies with a beginner's mind. You have to be willing to look at models that are not the way you've done work in the past, but could be potentially better ways of working, driving value for customers and for your shareholders. I believe that the shift in mindset needs to precede the shift in methodology in order for change to happen really effectively. If you don't seed a fresh mindset, then the methodology will just hit a brick wall every time.
Exactly what I want to ask you, because the picture you paint is a beautiful one. It's something everybody, I believe, wants to be in it. But I'm also coming from a corporate world. 5 years ago, till 5 years ago, I was working in all kinds of large corporate organizations, and how to say it politely, I have seen some egos who were not so, because you are talking about things that are very humble, that are very open, that are very honest about missing knowledges, missing skills, failures. And I have seen some egos who are not very happy about that.
Yes, that was quite diplomatic, the way you put that. But you're absolutely right. If you think about the way business is run today, the very seasoned, the very successful professionals in business today are very efficient at what they do. They're very good at what they do. They're very efficient at what they do, and they're very competent in what they do. And we in business we've really established a very strong kind of protocol to be very efficient, to trust your instincts, because your successes of the past are informing your confidence in the decisions and the actions that you're taking. And you're relying on the past to inform your decisions and your actions going forward. But that past history is no longer necessarily the best informant for the best options in front of you. And that's the break, right? We've hit a moment where technologies and innovation are coming online so quickly that your individual can't possibly know all the options, all the best options that are available to them. they have to open up their field of vision, right? They've been very narrowly focused, very efficient, letting their past inform their decisions and their actions. Now we're at a breaking point. They need to open up their field of view and explore options and technologies and collaborators that can help them be even more successful. So we have to break that paradigm. And really the biggest impediment are the very seasoned, the very successful executives, because we've trained them to be very efficient, very confident in letting their past inform the direction that they're setting going forward. And that just no longer applies. They need to open up to new technologies, new collaborators, and new models. So we're at a breaking point in that kind of understanding, and that change in the pattern hasn't really been broadly communicated. But HR is in the best position to kind of retrain that instinct within their organizations.
That's going to be an awesome period. What do you think? What did the last 3 months terrible COVID situation did for these kind of jobs? Did it help by forcing everybody to work from home, or basically nothing happened? It's just another location to work. What do you think?
I think the COVID phenomenon has been just really interesting. The COVID global COVID phenomenon has, for the folks that have been focused on the future of work, the fact that everyone has now become a distributed team has really, I think, laid bare the conversation about whether or not remote work works. There were a lot of organizations that were willing to embrace distributed teams and recognize that distributed teams could, in many cases, work just as effectively as co-located teams. However, there were a lot of organizations that were clinging to the necessity of co-located teams. And COVID has, I think, forced those organizations to revisit those assumptions. And they've had to become remote overnight. Now, our hope is that organizations coming out of COVID will not snap immediately back to the old norms, that they'll make a much more thoughtful decision regarding where co-location is absolutely necessary and merited, and where distributed teams are just as effective. And hopefully organizations generally will provide much more optionality to their teams to make the decisions that are right for their own jobs. So that's one, I think, real awakening that COVID has enabled. And the other lesson that I think we've learned globally is that pipeline business models, traditional pipeline business models, and very structured and rigid operating models are very fragile and fracture in the case of very volatile operating environments. And in COVID, we've seen this with COVID. Supply chains have fractured, operations have fractured because of the extreme volatility that we've all faced. Markets have shut down, plants have shut down, offices have shut down, and so my hope is that COVID has basically caused us to question the reliance on operating or resourcing models that are largely sourced with fixed resource models, right? So organizations that are relying on co-located full-time employees and approved supply chains felt the stress fractures that were caused by these extreme shifts in demand and logistics. So organizations that that put together a thoughtful design of a more distributed ecosystem, relying on flexible resource models, strategic full-time employees, ecosystems for supply chain and their own operating resources, give organizations more flexibility, more fluidity. They can scale up, scale down, move operations more easily to markets that can support the demand that they're serving.
Mm-hmm.
So two main, I hope, two main lessons coming out of COVID. Distributed teams, a very thoughtful approach to distributed teams, and a very thoughtful approach to ecosystems versus fixed and rigid resource plans.
Absolutely. That's exactly what happens with the HR testing, by the way. When I read about you, I found another very interesting topic that you deal with, and that's artificial intelligence and AI versus human intelligence. How do you see that? What will each, all, especially artificial intelligence, is such a buzzword, but how can it fit in, and what will human intelligence play? What role will that play?
Yeah, we might need another hour to chat on that one. So, I think, obviously artificial intelligence is it's all the buzz today, but what I find very interesting is basically those operating models that provide a spectrum between the human intelligence and the artificial intelligence, kind of a very symbiotic learning and optimization routine that leverages the human intelligence and creativity and allows that to feed the systemic intelligence, and then allows the vast kind of learning capacity and the systemic intelligence to optimize the decisions that the humans are making in that same work system. And we've seen this very symbiotic and really extraordinary type of operating model work in healthcare. It's applied in a lot of areas. I think financial services is doing a lot of really interesting things with HI and AI, the spectrum of HI and AI. Just an example that I thought was really driving the best for all kind of the both the customers and the operators in the system. There was a healthcare system that we worked with a few years back that allowed physicians in a patient room to basically input a few parameters regarding the patients that they were visiting, and the system behind the scenes was comparing the symptoms that patient was encountering, reading all of the other symptoms that were in the database, all the other patient systems in the network, comparing the decisions that the physician was making to all of the relative decisions that were made by other physicians in that system for patients with those symptoms, and comparing the decisions to the cost models in the hospital operating system. Crunching all of this data and coming back with a set of decision parameters for that physician so that they could optimize the care that they were providing to that patient in real time, but with greater information from the hospital network in which they were operating. So it was real-time decision support for the physician, giving them the confidence that they had basically the benefit of all the other the expert advice from all the other physicians in their network who were treating patients with very similar symptoms. So it was like having basically all their colleagues, their trusted colleagues, in the room with them and providing expert guidance so that that patient at that moment was getting the best possible care from that hospital network. So that was a beautiful example of human intelligence and artificial intelligence coming together in real time to dramatically improve the outcome for the patient in front of them.
Exciting. Listening to you, it's a nice word we are heading towards. Is that so? So what is the last question? What is your view of the future of work? So forgetting the buzzword and so how do you see how will we work in 10, 20 years?
Yeah, I hope that in 20 years we will all be basically our relationship with work will be elevated because the technology will be pulling a lot of the routinized and kind of lower value and or routinized work off of our plates. Will be basically running routines in the background and algorithms in the background so that our relationship with our customers and with our shareholders is elevated, and we are on basically the front line of managing the human experience. We're on the front line of the creative work, and we're able to focus our time on those things, those activities that are more strategic, that are more creative, and that are more personal, right? So that we're interacting with our customers in a way that is higher value and informed with greater information, with greater precision, and a lot of the work that would be just kind of production work or heavy lift types of work is handled by the machines. A lot of the the decision-making protocol is organized by routines so that we can make more informed choices. That's my hope for the future of work. It's optimized, it's platform enabled, it's ecosystem powered, and it's optimized for the humanity in the work itself.
Exactly, putting humans back into the future.
Exactly.
Yeah, that sounds like a sympathetic future. I'm happy to live in that, and hopefully my daughter will live in that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, optimization is in front of us. Technology, if we do this right, technology will basically take a lot of the inefficiency out of the decision-making process and the operational process. Technology will organize and execute a lot of those routines so that we can make better decisions with more precise information, basically guiding our actions less on anecdotes and less on our own individual experience, more from the lessons learned from very highly curated cohorts of experts based on collective learning. So I'm excited about the future of work. I'm an optimist, and I hope your daughter is in a position to benefit from all of the great work that you're doing today.
Exactly, and the great work you are doing, because I think it's extremely important what you do, and then thank you very much for having time for us to do this interview. It was an absolute honor. I hope we hear from you in the future. And in the meantime, keep in touch and let's build the future together.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to it. All right. Take care.
Bye.